The package looked ordinary from the outside, the kind of padded envelope that moved through sorting centers every day without anyone giving it a second thought. It was addressed to a political office in Ottawa. No warning label, no obvious smell, just a return address written in careful block letters and enough postage to make it go. When staff opened it, the room changed. Someone stepped back, covering their mouth. Someone else reached for a phone with shaking hands. Within minutes, police were on the way, and the building that handled routine calls and constituent mail turned into a crime scene. The sender wanted that shock. He wanted strangers to become witnesses. The victim was Jun Lin, a 33-year-old international student from China living in Montreal. He had moved to Canada to study engineering and build a life that felt stable and safe. Friends described him as quiet, polite, and focused, someone who kept his circle small while he adjusted to a new country. He worked, studied, and tried to stay out of trouble in a city that usually rewarded that kind of caution. Luca Magnotta was not cautious. He lived in Montreal too, chasing attention with a hunger that never seemed satisfied. He had appeared in adult films, courted tabloids, and cultivated an online persona that shifted depending on what earned him the most notice. He posted photos, spun stories about himself, and seemed to measure his worth by whether strangers were watching. Behind that performance was something colder, a willingness to make violence into content. On May 24, 2012, Jun Lin met Magnotta at Magnotta's apartment. Investigators later traced the contact through online communication and arranged meetings. The building sat in a normal Montreal neighborhood, the kind of place where neighbors heard footsteps in hallways and doors closing and thought nothing of it. That night, inside the apartment, Jun Lin was killed. Magnotta filmed what he did. The homicide was not only an act of violence, it was staged, framed, and recorded as if the camera mattered as much as the victim. In the days that followed, Magnotta began spreading the act beyond the walls of the apartment. A video titled "One Lunatic, One Ice Pick" appeared online. It showed the murder and the dismemberment of Jun Lin's body. People who saw it, often by accident, sometimes while trying to verify rumors, reported being traumatized by the footage. Internet users began sharing warnings, then fragments, then the name of the man they believed was responsible. Some contacted police, pushing them to take the video seriously. In a world where hoaxes were common, the images did not feel like a trick. While the online hunt accelerated, physical evidence surfaced in Montreal. On May 29th, a janitor discovered a suitcase left near dumpsters behind an apartment building in the Côte de Neige area. Inside was a human torso. The discovery forced the case into the open. Montreal police began identifying the victim and tracking the source. Forensic teams worked the scene, and investigators moved quickly to the apartment they believed was connected. They found blood, evidence of dismemberment, and signs the occupant had left in a hurry. News coverage exploded. A manhunt began for Magnotta as his name and photographs spread across Canada and far beyond it. The case drew a second parallel investigation on the internet, where people tried to match the apartment, the furniture, the suspect's hands, anything that could confirm what they were seeing. Some tips were useful, others created noise and panic. But the pressure was constant and public, and police could not treat it as a private homicide anymore. Then the mailings began. A foot was delivered to a Conservative Party office in Ottawa. Another package containing a hand was addressed to the Liberal Party. Additional parcels were sent to institutions, including schools in the Vancouver area. Postal workers and office staff were pulled into the horror without choosing it, opening envelopes that should have contained paper and finding proof that the killer wanted the country to react. Each package widened the circle of victims, turning ordinary workers into people who would never forget what they saw. As alerts went out across Canada, investigators worked to recover and identify more remains. Over the next days, Additional body parts were located in Montreal, including a head found in a park. Each discovery was another confirmation that the video had been real and that Jun Lin's body had been treated as a prop. Police issued a nationwide warrant. Interpol notices followed as they confirmed Magnotta had boarded a plane and left the country. Surveillance footage, passport records, and airline data placed Magnotta in Europe. The trail moved through Paris and into Germany. He used public spaces and internet cafes, attempting to monitor the news about himself while staying just anonymous enough to blend in. The case had become so widely reported that his face was everywhere. That visibility, the thing he seemed to crave, also made him easier to catch. On June 4, 2012, he was recognized in Berlin at an internet cafe. A customer had been reading news coverage about the case and spotted Magnotta nearby. German police were called. Officers arrived and arrested him without a chase, the spectacle ending not with a dramatic standoff, but with handcuffs in a public place. Magnotta was extradited back to Canada to face charges including first-degree murder and committing an indignity to a body, along with charges related to mailing body parts and harassing the government. The case moved into court with global attention. Prosecutors argued the killing was planned and deliberate, carried out with the intent required for first-degree murder. The defense did not deny Magnotta was responsible, but raised questions about mental illness and criminal responsibility. The trial forced jurors and the public to confront evidence that had already polluted the internet, and the court struggled with how to present proof without amplifying the killer's performance. The details that emerged showed planning and control: the camera setup, the editing, the steps taken to dispose of the body, and the choice to use the postal system to spread fear. Witnesses described the online postings. Investigators described the search of the apartment and the trail of packages. Throughout it all, Jun Lin's name surfaced again and again as a reminder that behind the spectacle was a real person who had trusted the wrong man. In 2014, after weeks of testimony and evidence, a jury found Magnotta guilty of first-degree murder and the related charges. He was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years, the mandatory sentence for first-degree murder in Canada. The legal outcome was decisive, but it could not restore what was taken from Jun Lin or undo the secondary harm done to countless people who encountered the video or the packages. Jun Lin's family had to grieve from across an ocean, navigating a foreign legal system while their son's name became linked to a spectacle he never chose. Friends remembered him not as a headline, but as a person, a student, a son, someone who came to Canada believing he could study in peace. The case became a warning about how violence can be amplified when a killer is determined to turn a murder into content, and how quickly a private act of brutality can be pushed into the public square. The trail from Montreal to Ottawa to Berlin was built on attention, online clicks, media coverage, the killer's need to be seen. But at its center was a life ended in an apartment on an ordinary street. Jun Lin did not vanish. He was taken, and his death was used as a message. Thank you for listening to Homicide Files. Subscribe for more true crime stories.